Hello, everyone, and welcome to this year's Girls Plus in STEAM conference. My name is Melissa, and I'm going to be your host for today. In our room, we are just getting a little bit organized here, so it might just be a few moments before we really get rolling. So just give us a couple minutes. So sorry. All right, thank you for your patience, everybody. Hello and welcome to our Girls Plus in STEAM conference. My name is Melissa. I am a science educator here at the Saskatchewan Science Centre, and I'm going to be your host for today. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge that the Science Centre is on Treaty 4 territory, and Treaty 4 was signed in 1874 in the Fort Qu'Appelle Valley, and it includes the homelands of the Saulteaux, Cree, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and Métis nations. We are all treaty people, and we continue to work, learn, and play on this land. Today, we have 2,743 participants tuning in from 38 communities across Saskatchewan and Manitoba, and that includes Treaty 2, Treaty 4, Treaty 6, and Treaty 10 territories. This event wouldn't have been possible today without funding from the Status of Women Office Saskatchewan, as well as ISC, and a special thanks to IKS Media, who is allowing this stream to happen today. To celebrate the International Day of Women and Girls in Science, we have put together this opportunity for you to meet women working in science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, and to gain new skills and have some fun with some hands-on activities. This year, we have 4 streams with different mentors that include topics such as creative technologies and augmented reality, wildlife biology, microbiology and science communication, and production engineering. And we have an exciting day ahead of us. The schedule is filled with mentors including Evie Johnny, who uses augmented reality for storytelling, Janet, who is sharing her work with bird populations, myself, who has worked both in microbiology and science communication, and Peyton, who works on visual effects for TV and films. We also have a really exciting keynote speaker today. We will be joined by Jen Harper, who is the founder and CEO of Cheekbone Beauty. And This is a cosmetics company that uses Indigenous teachings and aims to make cosmetics more inclusive for everyone. And she will be talking about her journey through using cosmetic sciences. To help facilitate today's events, check out the Girls Plus in STEAM 2026 webpage at sassciencecenter.com. This will also be where the whole event's recordings are, as well as our mentor videos and their coinciding activity videos. You will also be able to find an activity list as well as a supplies list if you have not received your activity box yet. And that way you can follow all of our mentor videos. Today's event will be asynchronous, so all of the mentor videos and activities you are able to do on your own time and at your own pace if you need to. Throughout the live portions of today, we would love to hear questions and comments from you. To do so, please use the chat and we will be able to communicate that to the people who we are talking to. Now, to begin our conference, I would like to invite Cookum Brenda, a member of the Muscophetung First Nation. Brenda is a Cookum auntie, sister, and mother of 5 that will be leading our opening remarks. All right, Cookum Brenda, I am offering you this tobacco for your blessing of this conference and the opening remarks for this Girls Plus in STEAM conference.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow, isn't she great? Isn't she great? Wow. You think she's nervous? Huh? She is. She is. But she exudes it really well. Thank you again for inviting me to the STEAM conference. I really appreciate just the time and energy that's been put together to create this. I know there's other people gathering from throughout the province, and I encourage you to really take a moment to benefit from the speakers that have been made available to you. It is about, people say that youth are our future, but I tell people youth are right now, and I'm glad that so many of you have taken the time out of your days to just be present. I want to also thank your teachers and your chaperones and everybody else that helps with pulling off this day. But I'd like to help lead you right now through what I call a human blessing before you start your day. Can you please take your first breath? And in that first breath, can you think about something that touched your heart and water came out of your eyes? People call them tears. There's 3 different scientific releases of water that comes out of your eyes for reasons. So I encourage you to not apologize for the water that comes out of your eyes. It has to happen. It helps you be a better human. If you can take another breath, and in that breath, something that touched your heart and helped you feel happy, so happy you wanted to pick up the phone and call someone. You want to share it. You want to dance. You remember how it felt to be a little kid getting a really happy present? Hold on to those happy moments, because life does challenge us. And sometimes we're almost on the ground saying there's nothing to be happy about. I want to remind you there are many happy moments along your trails. Please hold on to them as you go ahead. Now, if you can take another breath, and in that breath, is there something you're worried about? And if you can right now, take that worry, put it gently in your hands, say a nice prayer over it, put it gently outside the space that you're in. You will get to it later. You deserve to be in the now. Worry takes us away from the day. You deserve to be in the present. It's a gift you give to yourself. Another breath. Is there something that's challenging in your life? Think about it for a moment. You know, I admire you. You're very young. You may think growing up is hard, challenging. Enjoy every moment of it. Enjoy every moment of it. Those challenging moments are there to help you get better in life. See, and we tell people, we encourage people, pray for courage, because every day that you wake up with strength. Remind yourself of that. Strength to face the day. Now you need courage as a part of your package. If you could take another breath. And in that breath, did you feed this body? Did you let it sleep last night? And did you give it some exercise? You only have one for this time. Take care of it. Take care of it. You say you have 24 hours in a day. 8 hours to work, 8 hours to play, 8 hours to sleep. Use them wisely. You take another breath. And in that breath, can you start thinking about 4 things you have gratitude for? You know, some of you have mommies, daddies. Some of us don't. Some of you have houses. Luxuries of having access to food, transportation. Some people don't. For me, I give gratitude. As soon as I wake up, that first breath, I get a gift of life today. What am I going to do with it? And I always pray that Creator put across my path the people that I'm intended to learn something from. So this day has been created for you to learn something from, but also learn something from one another as well as you go along. Now this last breath, I pray it not be your last breath. I pray when Creator wakes you up tomorrow that you ask yourself one question. What is one thing that you will do different because of something you went through or learned today? And today is full of bounty. Dream big. You know, and if you wake up bitter, I want you to call somebody. They may help you feel better. It's about reaching out for help. As we go through trials and tribulations of life, we too need to learn how to reach out for help before things get too tough. The world is here for you, young ones. Please experiment. And I want to go back to that word STEAM, because in the years past I came and it was STEM. And I always remind people, science, technology, engineering, and math can't do it without arts, creativity, your imagination, your intuition, your intentions in life come from all those places. So please, as time goes ahead, look for your place. A place has been created for you already in your divine spirit plan. Please start listening to where you're meant to be, because you are meant to be someplace. Whether you're a leader or one that's behind, I always tell people the one that's behind is also a leader too. So Jimigwech, aho, have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cook and Brenham, for that beautiful blessing. Next, I would like to introduce the Honorable Minister Laura Ross, who will bring us greetings on behalf of the province of Saskatchewan. Minister Ross is the Minister of Parks, Culture and Sport, as well as the Minister responsible for the status of Women's Office. Following Minister Ross's welcome, the CEO of the Saskatchewan Science Centre, Sandy Baumgartner, will say a few words and introduce our keynote speaker today.
Hello everyone. I'm delighted to join you virtually for this year's Girls in STEAM Conference. This event is such an important opportunity to inspire and empower young women across Saskatchewan to explore careers in science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. Thank you to the Saskatchewan Science Centre and their partners who have worked so hard to make this day possible. Your commitment to creating inclusive spaces for learning and innovation is truly remarkable, and it is inspiring to see that we have over 2,000 students from 31 different communities participating. STEAM fields are shaping the future of our province and our world by encouraging curiosity, creativity, and confidence. You are helping to build the next generation of leaders and problem solvers. To all the students joining us today, know that your ideas matter, your voices matter, and your potential is limitless. Thank you to the educators, mentors, and organizers who make this event possible. Together, we are opening doors and creating opportunities that will strengthen Saskatchewan for years to come. Enjoy this conference and keep reaching for new possibilities.
Good morning and welcome, everyone. As Melissa said, my name is Sandy Baumgartner, and I have the great privilege of being the CEO of the Saskatchewan Science Centre. And it is my pleasure to welcome you for joining us today here at the Saskatchewan Science Centre, where we have a number of students. And we just had a lovely welcome address from Minister Alana Ross. The interesting thing about this conference is we started this 5 years ago with Minister Laura Ross. So we've had two Minister Rosses that have led us through this beautiful journey of the Girls in STEAM conference. So thank you all for being here, and thank you both Minister Rosses for getting us to this point in our history. Today is especially meaningful because February 11th is the International Day of Women and Girls in Science. It's a day recognized around the world to celebrate the contribution of women in science and to remind us why creating pathways, opportunities, and a sense of belonging for girls in STEAM truly matters. Here at the Saskatchewan Science Centre, we believe curiosity is powerful, and you'll experience that today, where young people see themselves reflected in science, technology, engineering, and as Cook and Brenda said, arts and math. It opens doors to futures that you may not have thought about, exploring ideas, asking bold questions, meeting inspiring role models, and discovering that there is no single way to look, think, or successfully contribute to STEAM fields in the future. To all of you joining us today, you belong here. Your ideas matter, your questions matter, and your perspectives are needed in shaping our future. Thank you to our presenter, who you'll meet in a few minutes, Jen Harper, the mentors who you will meet throughout the day, our partners, the educators that brought you here or that are leading your activities back in your classrooms around the province, and a special thank you to the Saskatchewan Science Centre team who put this day together. So as you take those boxes that you received, hopefully by now, and you open them up and see all of those amazing activities in your participant kit and participate in those activities, that's because of the strong and very amazing team here at the Saskatchewan Science Centre. You met Melissa, and she was one of those, and you'll meet some of the others later today. So thank you again. Thank you to our partners, the Status of Women's Office and ISC, for making this day possible. And now let's get started, and I'll bring back Melissa to start your day. Thank you so much.
At any point, don't save your questions to the end. If you have a question, we have paper here we can write it down at any point in the show, and then we'll send it in.
All right, everybody. We are just waiting for Jen to come online, so it's just going to be a few minutes here. Once again, I want to thank everybody here for coming. Once again, thank Cook and Brenda for our blessing. It was a wonderful time. As we were creating these activities, we had a lot of fun coming up with ideas and talking with all of the mentors as well. And Jen's going to be on right away here.
Annie, bonjour. Annie, bonjour. Oh, I'm hearing an echo. Okay, that's gone. Good. That would be extremely distracting. Hello, everyone. My name is Jen Harper, and I am the founder and CEO of a company called Cheekbone Beauty. We are a color cosmetics company, and I'm going to share with you the journey of how we got to where we are today. So we're going to go through a slide deck. So please pop up the slides. So, our purpose of Cheekbone Beauty was a lot different, I think, than a lot of other beauty brands that exist in the space today and still is. This idea actually came to me from a pop out of bed, middle of the night dream. I always chuckle when I still say that. But back in January of 2015, so over 11 years ago now, 3 Indigenous little girls, they were covered in lip gloss. And when I woke up from that dream, I grabbed my laptop and I started to write out what is the foundation of our brand today. And back then, the idea was to make a lip gloss and use a portion of those profits to do something to support my community. The whole purpose was this concept or idea about representation and how much it matters and how much I truly still believe it matters. I grew up in a place here in Canada, in Southern Ontario, but I don't ever remember seeing myself represented in any mainstream media. In fact, I feel like the way I was represented was not authentically true to who I was or who my people were. So, on the early days of building Cheekbone Beauty, the mission was how can we provide representation in the beauty space? But I have to go back in history with you because that journey was not left without obstacles, bumps, and barriers along the way. Next slide. So, when I had that dream, it's 2015, and we have to remember that during this time period, the whole world, in particular us here in Canada, were learning about the residential or boarding school system, as it's called in the United States. And so, myself, I was a 38-year-old Ojibwe woman learning about this along with the rest of the country. And I had discovered that both of my grandparents survived the residential school system. This is a picture. This is my kukum, my grandmother. Her name is Emily Paul, and she attended a boarding school just outside of the Kenora area, which is Lake of the Woods in northwestern Ontario. And when my grandmother went to residential school, she was taken from our home community at the age of 8 and forced to live in this residential school till she was 18 years old. And we've learned a term since then called generational or transgenerational trauma. And it's when a group of people or a person is faced with an event that they are not equipped to deal with, because in this case, we're talking about children, and taken from their families. And so that trauma that is experienced through those 10 years where she's ultimately lacks just the basics of a child growing up, which is love, nourishing, and caring from your community or your environment. And then to the extent we're in this school system, things like her language and her culture was completely robbed from her. And we know that the impact that this has had is quite negative on many First Nations people across the country. So my family, even though this is our story or my story, I know we're not alone in this space. And so I have learned since then that this term existed where this trauma started, and it was ultimately then passed on to me and my siblings. And so my grandmother left residential school. She went on to have her children, my father being one of the oldest. And then this trauma continued to exist to this day, ultimately, in our family. Next slide. So, what I have to share with you is really importantly, and this is a little bit of a trigger warning for everyone. I do talk about the subject of addiction and suicide in my presentation. So if anyone's uncomfortable, I take no offense if you have to leave. But I share this because it's super important and it's a really important part of my story. So I'm learning that my grandparents survived the residential school system, and this trauma then exists in our family. In January of 2015 is only 2 months after I got sober. So me personally had battled alcoholism for many, many years. I have this dream 2 months after getting sober. It's this new crazy mission that I completely believe in, that I'm going to start this cosmetics company by first making this lip gloss. But on the journey, really tragic things happened. And one was, this up until my life in 2016, I had never experienced this kind of pain, but I lost my brother, BJ. This is a photo of me and him. And for the first few years of, or 2 years of building Cheekbone and doing all the research, because again, I don't know anything about this space beauty industry, and I'm learning and I'm sharing it with my family. And then I happened to lose my brother tragically to suicide in September of 2016, just before we're about to launch the brand Cheekbone Beauty. And this is just one of the most painful things I've ever had to experience. And I was really honestly ready to give up and quit. And you know, all the questions someone when they're suffering and going through something asks themselves, like, why am I doing this? What is it for? And to this day, I really love and want to continue to honor my brother BJ in a way that without this pain, I truly believe, as crazy as that sounds, that Cheekbone would not be where we are today had I not experienced this kind of pain. And I've since learned many entrepreneurs, we all have this really big reason why we continue to do something, because this is not an easy task. When you're building or creating something or putting something new into the world, there are, again, those obstacles come in your way. And entrepreneurship and building and even working within organizations, there's so many barriers that could stop us. But if you become accustomed and understand that that's part of the path, then you will also be able to continue. And for someone who's experienced something great or has this big reason why or purpose that they want the brand to exist or the thing that they're making to exist, you continue to go on. And my brother said to me on one of the last times I saw him, which was May of 2016, that when I was explaining Cheekbone and the purpose and how we wanted to use a portion of these profits to give back, and I wanted to create this brand to provide representation. And he said, Jen, our children need hope and they need help. And he really believed what we were doing with the business was going to be great. And I thank him for those words, because it helps me on those days of this roller coaster ride that it feels like this is impossible. Next slide. So, how does someone who is in the beauty space find themselves here? Number one, especially if you have no experience in this industry. And I personally had none back in 2015, aside from being an incredible customer or consumer of the products. I had no professional experience in the beauty space. I have worked in the food industry and the hospitality space for my entire career, first in boutique style hotels and restaurants, and then moved into sales and marketing within food organizations like Cisco. I had worked for that, a broadline distributor. And then I was working for a seafood company for 8 years while I had the dream to build Cheekbone Beauty, and continued to work there for 3 years while the idea was coming into fruition and before we put the brand into the world. So, how does someone who has no experience get started in this space? Well, turns out it's not as difficult as one might think. There's this term now called globalization, and within globalization, and because of that, we have what is called private or white label products. So not just in beauty, but in every industry now, you most likely can source a product that you want to sell from your, let's just say, e-commerce store or platform, and this organization will put your logo on the product, and you purchase the product, and there you start shipping it and selling it to customers. So because of that night when I wrote down I wanted to create this lip gloss and use a portion of the profits to do something to help my Indigenous community, I Googled how to make a lip gloss. Turned out you could possibly make this in your kitchen should you want to, but unfortunately I wasn't going to head down that path. And secondly, in the Google search, all of these private white label organizations started to appear, and you could purchase products made and sell them. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is going to be so much easier than I thought. I always share this really openly and honestly now. I am embarrassed of how we started Cheekbone Beauty, because if it was that simple for me to do, it's going to be that simple for anyone to do, which just meant there's no competitive advantage. And so that was how we had to start. I don't come from generational wealth. I always say quite the opposite. Generational poverty. And so I didn't have access to money or capital that most entrepreneurs would have when they have an idea and want to start a business. And I also didn't have enough experience in the space to understand what any of that actually meant. Like, what would be a great position to be in the market in the beauty space? What's going to set us apart and different? Of course, 11 years later, have since learned all those things really matter. Something called product market fit really matters when you're putting something into the world to find out who's going to be the right customer. But this is how we had to start. And not having a lot of money or capital also meant that this was really inexpensive. And I thought, honestly and truthfully, this would be the easiest way for me to test the market. Does anyone even want this brand to exist? So the partner we used, they happened to be in Canada. They were making products in Canada, which felt really good at the moment. And then they also were really close to the headquarters of where the seafood company I worked at the time in Toronto was, and their office was just down the street. So they were doing something that was low MOQs. And so when you're in the CPG space, which just means consumer product, like consumer goods, you don't want to have to buy thousands of units of a product when you don't even know if there's a market for it. So they were letting us buy really low quantities so I could test the market. And so off we went. And then it turns out I learned really, really quickly, as mentioned, if I could do this, so could anyone. So immediately started to see all kinds of other brands on the internet selling the same kinds of products. And then when customers, which we got attention really quite quickly, started to ask questions about ingredients, how we source products, where they're made, how they're made, I absolutely had no idea. And when I say I was embarrassed, this is where the true embarrassment came. I was always an advocate for sustainability when I was in the food space. And those were things that really, really mattered to me from very early on. And so truly getting an education and understanding that, oh, wow, so I couldn't answer any of these questions for our customers. And I thought, how could I be selling these people a product where I actually don't know how they're made, what they're made with, or where they're coming from? And I had this moment where this isn't going to work if this brand is going to exist. But what we had proven in this really short period of time, so this is launching at the end of 2016, we're now into 2017. I'm getting these questions early on. However, we had already been able to prove by selling hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of this private label product that there was a space for a brand like ours. We just had to redefine who we were, but that was going to take a lot of work and a lot of capital. And so the next part of the Cheekbone journey was for me to figure out all of that space. And so as someone who came into this with not having any family as entrepreneurs, any really close mentorship relationships, I had to do everything possible. So that meant in those early years, I always say I read over 100 books in 2 years on just the basics of building a business. I would show up at every event I possibly could across North America to try to make connections with people to learn everything I can about the industry. And then started heading into these spaces because then, now that I knew that the products I weren't selling were the products that I envisioned or really wanted, what could we do that would be really, really different? Next slide. And so this is when we landed with this world that we live in now. So this is a photo that really embodies the new version of Cheekbone Beauty. So formulas that we have worked on and made with ingredients that we have sourced and understand, and really working with partners and manufacturers that are really open, honest, and transparent. And then we, again, try to use our platform and our community to be really transparent and really educate our customer. We're living in a world right now where there is so much, I believe, vilification of whether it's, especially in this world of sustainability, when we're having these kinds of conversations. This was the brand that I now envisioned. I was like, what's going to make us different? Okay, we're not going to do things like the way everyone else did. We really honed in on using my Indigenous roots to be the foundation of the brand. So what that meant was we would literally have these conversations as we were building about what would it look like if our ancestors were involved? What would it look like if it was actually Indigenous people having conversations about how we make and create products. And I learned a term called life cycle thinking or life cycle analysis, started to study it. It was a process that was coined at the University of Portugal. And it's this concept of like from harvesting of a raw material to the end of the life of a product, meaning where does it end up? And if it's going to end up in a landfill or back in an ecosystem, what happens to it when it reaches those spaces or places? And then not only the where things are made or how they're made, but how are the people, the humans being impacted by the work that's happening, whether it's harvesting of the shea butter, for example. And so learning everything along that journey, and our whole mission then became, okay, so how do we ensure an ethical supply chain? How do we ensure safe ingredients? And how do we ensure not only safe for the human, but also safe for the planet? Meaning when it does end up in at the end of the life, what's happening to it? So if you wash your makeup off and your ingredients aren't biodegradable back into an ecosystem, what happens to them? And we've all since learned so many things about PFAs, or what the industry is calling forever chemicals, and trying to do this without scaring people, because I feel like a lot of times a lot of fear mongering happens. And so we try to educate and let the consumer or the customer decide what is the best solution for them. And the truth is, in this space, there is so much, like there's so much misinformation, greenwashing, and this idea of like that there is really one right way to do something. And the truth is, it's extremely nuanced. There's no silver bullet for sustainability or green beauty, and it's really about what your customer is after. And so as a brand, and I think the really smart brands and the brands that you ask questions and then they have the answers, you can just working with someone who calls himself a clean beauty brand. I really don't believe that there is, number one, no global or regulatory body around the world to define what that means. And so what brands have to do is really define what that means for them. So we took that and based it on our Indigenous roots and our with the historical piece of what are the teachings that still exist today within our Indigenous spaces and cultures and different nations and groups. So for instance, there's the teaching which we call the 7 generations teaching. And that meant when people were thinking about what they're doing today, how it not only impacts us, but how it will impact not just the next generation, but the next 7 generations. There's teachings about what we take from the land and giving back to the land. There's teachings about the idea of success in our Indigenous communities isn't just about one person attaining and gaining for themselves. It's like, is the community gaining? Are you giving back to the community? And that's the ideas of success. So at Cheekbone Beauty, we took what we call our 7 grandfather teachings from Maya Anishinaabe culture and built the core values of our business around that. And that not only embodies how our team works together, but then also how we make and create products and put them into the world. So in 2021, we started the journey back in 2015 with the dream. This is by 2021 where we land. And that is when we started working with Sephora. And so it was a really big deal for us as an Indigenous brand. That was such a powerful moment. There's no other Indigenous brand in the world to date that's ever been and sat on a Sephora shelf. So we're really, really proud that we at Cheekbone Beauty have been able to achieve that. But the truth is, we don't ever want to be just the only ones. We have worked really hard to pioneer and blaze a trail in this category of beauty, which we call Indigenous beauty. So the world is very familiar with Korean beauty, which means incredible epic skincare. They're familiar with Japanese beauty, which is this ritualistic systems beauty. And then if we think of French beauty, that's perfume and red lipstick. And if we think of even Indian beauty, which is Ayurvedic, which again is very ritualistic, we want, when the world hears the term Indigenous beauty, to think that is synonymous with sustainability, and how we make and create products is different and from how other people in this space play. And so we really are working so hard to define this space and create this category. Next slide. So what sets us apart? I really just did go over a whole bunch of things where we've now that I had spent all of these years in the space, I knew we had to define our our area and make our mark, which was this place called Indigenous Beauty. Again, so no capital. Finally, in 2019 is when we received some investment through our investment partners, Raven Capital. I went to them with my new plan. And this is where it's so important to understand that early on in anyone's journey, the way you're doing something might not always be the way it's going to end up. So always feel free to pivot and change when you need and when you see things differently. And that's how it really worked for us, recognizing, okay, if we're going to be unique in this space, we're going to have to do things really different. And that went back to literally a whole new business plan. And that's what I shared with Raven Capital. And the whole idea for us was that the goal was, one, to become a B Corp certified company. We were building our own lab at our headquarters in St. Catharines, and we wanted to work with a team of chemists and sustainability scientists that could really help us define this space with us. And that's what we set out to do. Raven did become our investor. We have built our lab, and we worked on all of those formulations that we had then launched into 2021, which was a transformative year for the brand. And that was the year that we also went into Sephora and landed on their shelves. So we believe in supply chain transparency. We believe in Indigenous innovation, thinking about the past, marrying that with Western science in order to create and make new products. And then also thinking about raw materials and actual ingredients that go into beauty. And then we also, what it meant to be a B Corp company, if no one's familiar with that, it really was a platform that aligned so well with our Indigenous value system. It's this idea of putting people and planet before profits. And we have now a legal obligation to that as a B Corp partner. And so we're really proud that we had been on this path and this journey. And that was one of the goals, because the truth is there is a lot of vetting that goes along. I've been in this industry, in this space long enough, and in my history of even working in seafood, there's a lot of logos or seals of approval that you can see on packaging. And to be quite honest, many of them are quite meaningless. It really just means writing a check to an organization and they will let you have that seal. However, at the B Corp community and their vetting process is much different. It takes sometimes up to a year to have this process, because they're going down your supply chain. They're asking you questions about every detail of how your business operates, not only how you source and source products and work with your supply chain, but also how you treat your employees and do your employee programs and how you pay people, living wages, and all of those sorts of things. And so it was a long process. And we, in 2021, also became this B Corp certified company. Next slide. So lots of really, really exciting, fun things have happened along this journey. This is a really important story, and I share it for many reasons. One, if you work within an organization, if you're an entrepreneur, if you want to build something, if you have an idea, I think getting used to hearing no is really important, because you will get rejected a ton. But the truth is, if you never ask, you'll never know the answer. And so it's always important to use your courage and work on that as much as possible to be able to pitch or promote your own ideas wherever you are, in whatever industry or place. And so this story of Write the Story is really about that. Not only is it an incredible project we got to do, but it was a really powerful scenario. So Madeline, who you see on, I think it's the right on our screens, she's holding up our Write the Story lipstick, and she is standing. And I always say, I've never advocated for how this happened or how she got this photo, but she's somewhere along the Gardiner Expressway in Toronto. And this was a project that was presented to us back in 2020, entering 2021. So it was a very pivotal year. You heard all those changes that happened. We really went from this, using private label, white label products to making our own formulations out of our own lab, a whole new product roster. We have the Sephora opportunity coming our way. And so in January of 2021 is when I got the call from Sephora that said, yes, we're going to launch Cheekbone Beauty. And to give you a little bit of the backstory, for since 2018, I had been working on this idea of getting into Sephora. I've always had it on my vision board, at whether it's my home office or the Cheekbone headquarters. And in 2018, I applied for their accelerator program. So Sephora is a very smart, savvy organization. Every year, they have an accelerator program where they invite like 10 beauty brands up and coming to see what's happening. What are people making? What are they working on? Because Sephora is owned by LVMH, and obviously they live to be at the forefront of anything new that's happening. So what a great way to learn about the businesses and brands that exist. And so we applied for this. I met with their team at their headquarters in Mississauga at the time and was in their boardroom. And I'm sitting there with these private label products. You saw the old picture. Nothing new had happened yet. And I'm telling them, this is the brand, this is the story, this is the idea. And I always say this super dramatically, like they took those private label products and like swashed them off the table and said, quite honestly, they will never sit on our shelves, because as much as I knew this, there was no innovation there. There was nothing new. There was no differentiating factor. They knew that as well. So they're beauty experts. They've seen these products before, and they knew this was a private label company. They said, however, we really love you and the idea of this brand that you're building. And so if you could bring us new products in the future, we think that there could be some potential there. And so of course, left, got rejected from the accelerator program, and was, super emotional and down about that. However, I picked myself up and I was like, okay, well, this is it. Like, either I get serious about this next version of Cheekbone Beauty or I quit. And turns out I got serious. I didn't give up. And I found the investor, Raven Capital. We built the lab. We started making the lipsticks. And I didn't even start the lipsticks when we finally built the lab in 2020. In 2018, I immediately got to work. And so you can be doing multiple things at the same time, and it's important to just stay consistent and focused. And so in the background, I remember I found a contract chemist and I said, look, this is what the vision is for the brand: sustainability, more naturally derived ingredients. We want ingredients that biodegrade, but we also want bold, bright colors. We want to show that like clean and sort of clean beauty doesn't have to mean muted, and everything at the time was like millennial pink or like mint green. And I was like, no, we want bold. We want to stand out. And so she knew exactly what we wanted. She started working on the lipsticks, and then I would get samples of the lipsticks, and her and I would talk about them. And then I still had the contact. So what I did was, because of those three C-suite people at Sephora that I met, their head of merchandising in Canada, their head of marketing, and their head of HR, I kept in contact with the VP of merchandising, know that they would most definitely have the most impact on what's going on the shelves in Sephora Canada. And so I would take the lipstick samples and I would continue to send them to her, sometimes not hear anything back, and then sometimes get an email that is like, hate the lip feel, too much pull, or too dry, like just really like exactly what's wrong with the lipstick, but just short. And so that happened for a couple of years, and for some time didn't hear anything. And then finally in 2021 got the message that Sephora was ready to launch us, which was a huge moment. And I knew, looking at our brand, because when you're a savvy entrepreneur, you don't spend all kinds of money on branding or marketing. So I knew we had to level our game. So now it's time to like turn the brand around, make us look like we're going to be ready for Sephora shelves. So we sent out the team, Madeline included. Everyone was supposed to bring a marketing agency, and we were going to meet them, and this marketing agency was going to help us do this rebrand. Madeline shows up to the meeting with a company called Sidley. And I remember this is back in like heavies, everything was on Zoom. And I'm like looking this company up while we're having the meeting with them. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what is Madeline thinking? This is Sidley. They're the creative agency that created We the North campaign for the Toronto Raptors. So immediately dollar signs are going through my head. And I'm like, we cannot afford these people. What are you thinking, Madeline? And so at the end of the call, I thanked them for their time. And I said, look, you are way out of our price range. And they said, no, you don't understand. Every year we get to do pro bono work, which means free. And we're choosing Cheekbone Beauty. And of course, blown away, I immediately say yes. And just here's the facts. Remember, nothing is ever free because it ended up costing us about $75,000. But they helped us do a complete rebrand. So the brand you see today, these bold, beautiful colors, the fact that all of our face products come in purple now, lips in our signature pink, and eye products in teal. And then we have like brand, they created a brand Bible and the language we use and how we speak online and all the way that our company acts and looks was created by them. And it was just a moment of like, okay, now we exist as a real brand that looks like we're Sephora ready. They came back to us after that and they were like, look, we want to enter this competition with you. Here's the thing. You could win $1 million in ad spend. So if anyone knows anything about ad spend, $1 million is a lot of money. When I was having this conversation with them back then, we were still paying like $5 a day for Facebook ads. This is $1 million in what they call in-home and out-of-home. So as you see, bus stops and billboards and an actual TV commercial would be part of the prize with this $1 million. So immediately I'm like, yes, how do we do this? What do we do? They said, we will get to work and we're going to pitch you a few campaign ideas and then your Cheekbone will get to pick which one they want. And we're going to go enter it in this competition called the Idea Competition. And we're going to see what happens. And lo and behold, we absolutely won that $1 million. As you can see by the billboards, we had 4 incredibly amazing Indigenous women in the campaign, including Quanah Chasing Horse, who is like legendary now in the model space, like has worked for Chanel, like just so many incredible moments. We also got to support Quanah when she was at the Met Gala in 2000 and I think it was 2023, but it's and that's a whole nother story, but amazing. This Write the Story wins this campaign. We have the most beautiful commercial. So if you ever have time, search Write the Story Cheekbone Beauty on YouTube. You will watch the most incredible 90-second commercial. Everything was shot in the Yukon. The entire crew, food service, hotel, everything was Indigenous. Like it was 95%. And it was just this incredible, amazing experience. And for a little tiny brand like Cheekbone Beauty, this was such a big, big moment. And here's the crazy catch. So we do this, they come back to us at the end of the pitches and we choose the Write the Story because it was the most beautiful one. And they said, all you have to cover now, because they were still doing pro bono work for all the creative. And they said, you really just have to cover the hard costs. So here's where the tough spot came in for me, but maybe not so tough now when I think about it. They said it's only going to cost $150,000. So for us, that was a lot of money. We had already spent more doing the rebranding with them than we had ever anticipated. And I was like, oh my goodness, like this is nuts. Like we have to do this. Like but where am I going to get this $150,000? So I went home and I thought about it. And immediately that night I was like, oh my goodness, like we're launching in Sephora. And at the time it was only on Sephora.ca. We didn't have any in-store placements. And this is where I went to Sephora. And this is where you have to get so creative sometimes with your thinking and your strategy. I was like, look, they are a really smart team. They're going to know what $1 million in ad spend means. And I pitched this to them. They immediately came back to us. I think they were just trying to make us hold on, like they weren't going to say yes. They said, yes, we'll give you the $150,000 to pay for the hard costs. And what, of course, we did was add their branding to all of this promotion in Q4 of 2022 and into 2023. And it was such a massive moment. But that was a really challenging thing for me to do. I was I think I felt very insecure and didn't have a lot of confidence back then. And, confidence comes with experience and practice. That's what I've learned. I'm like, no one is born confident. People can pretend all the time, but it will actually come with knowledge. And the more that you learn, and now I probably could have done this so much easier, but back then I was so scared. And I always say to anyone, when you're feeling that way, just recognize that the worst thing that they could have said was no. But the best thing that they did say was yes. And this put us in ultimately 9 stores immediately with the Write the Story campaign. It was such a blow up moment for our brand. Next slide. So like when I say incredible things on this journey, it's just it almost blows me away. I'm in the process of writing a book right now, and that is set to come out this year. And I've gone back over the 11 years on the cheekbone journey. And so mentioning Quanta Chasing Horse. So we work with a lot of celebrity makeup artists, and what you do in this industry, nothing is free. Nobody does work for free. So you pay a celebrity makeup artist to use your products, usually on the celebrity. You usually go through the makeup artist because that's the cheaper route, and we're a small brand and we have to do everything on the cheap. And so we found this makeup artist that we absolutely love. Her name is Katie Deno. She's out of Los Angeles. And so she and Quanta already had a relationship. And so we paid Katie. She uses Cheekbone Beauty for the Met Gala. The night before, this is a wild story, she calls me. She gets to the hotel in New York and she's like, Jen, the products are not here. I panicked. This is 10 o'clock Sunday night. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is insane. Immediately call her back. And I said, look, I'm hopping on a plane 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. I booked the flight from Toronto to New York. I'll be there with the products in person. Cause like, what else are you going to do? Like they hadn't arrived. So I drive to Cheekbone, pack my suitcase loaded with the products, head to the Met Gala. I meet Katie at her hotel. And I'd never worked with her before. And so she was like, come with me in the cab ride down to the Carlisle. That's like the Carlisle and the Mark are like the hotels that everyone's getting ready for Met Gala. And so I'm driving with her and she's like, tell me the whole brand story. And like, what an amazing opportunity. Like I could have been so disappointed, that the products didn't arrive, but it turned out to be an incredible experience. And I always, think of my years in hospitality and how that really taught me that you do, no matter what you're doing in life, the moment you go above and beyond, you will reap those rewards in tenfold in so many different ways. And so that has just solidified Katie and I's relationship and her relationship to the Cheekbone Beauty brand. And she's been an advocate and literally promoted us with some of the most amazing people. Our sand lip pencil goes viral in 2023 because Sarah and Aaron Foster, who are the producers of the Netflix series, and I always forget the name with it, but they started talking about our sand lip pencil on their podcast. But again, those are Katie Deno customers. And so everything just goes full circle. And the best moments, even though a lot of things are PR, a lot of things are organic and true. And so she is a true fan of our brand, and she's turned a lot of celebrities to be true fans of our brand as well. And so just incredible, but always go above and beyond. No matter what you're doing, you will reap a reward. It may not be in that moment, but it'll be in the future. And only don't do it because of the reward, because I authentically believe intention matters the most. But the moment you do that, you will be recognized at some point in your life. Trust me on this one. So this list is wild. Canadian Business Magazine puts this out every single year. It's new innovators. Shopify, okay? Shopify, which is a multi-billion-dollar company organization, was number one this year when this list was put out. And we were number 4. We're this tiny little brand run by me who knows nothing about science. And we win this spot because of an incredible project. We started working on this probably just as soon as we built our lab in 2020. And so immediately when you enter this industry, so I had come from the food space, so I also knew food and beauty are very similar in the sense that our ingredient lists tell someone exactly what's in our products. There's no hiding what's in your product. And any really fantastic chemist can really reverse engineer a lot of formulations. It's literally, I'm telling you the truth, it's how we copy some formulas that we like from other brands that have already made something. And if something's already amazing, why not recreate it if you can? And so very simply to do that. And so I was like, how are we really ever going to be different if everyone could just copy what you're doing? And so I came up with this idea that we were going to make our own ingredient or our own sort of like secret sauce, which would be an ingredient or a mix of ingredients that we will put in all of our future products. And so we started working on this project called the Niagara Project. And it wasn't revolutionary in the sense that no one had done it before. A very famous brand, which everyone I'm sure will know, called Caudalie, has done this in France, where they take the waste and they use like active ingredients from the grape waste. And so we did this in the Niagara region with a varietal though that doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. And it's a really unique grape variety called the Baco Noir grape, which is only native and to the Niagara region because it's a vine that was brought over from Europe and a vine that already existed right here in the Niagara region. And so we then did the project. We've worked on it for 4 years to prove it would work, and we did. And so now our goal is in the future to have an ingredient that goes into our future skincare products or possible color makeup as well. So incredible things can happen. And I'm going to share this, and I embarrassingly say this to a group of you who are all probably way smarter than me, but I was not a great student. I actually failed grade 9 and 10 science, and it baffles my mind that today I own a lab and work with really smart scientists to help me make and create these products. Next slide. This is a new slide I've added this year to our deck because I think it's so important to share that every journey, it's maybe not always up. I've said it's this roller coaster. So in 2024, believe it or not, most publicly, this is because a lot of entrepreneurs don't share how horrible this could be sometimes, but we almost had to close our doors. Like business is really, really tough. And I just want to always, like, my team are never on these calls, but we are a very small team. We are 7 people full time, and the rest of the work that we have done at Cheekbone Beauty is contract. And so our team knew immediately that we were in trouble, and we worked so hard together to turn the year around. And we did in 2025, and 2025 became the year that we became profitable for the very first time in the history of the brand. We are now in year 10 at Cheekbone Beauty. We launched in 2016. Now it is 2026, so we've entered the 10th year, and a lot of businesses do close within the first year, then they say 5 years and 10 years. So we're like, this is our year. We're going to make it through year 10. It's 2026 feels like it's started off a little bit slow, but we are hopeful about the future because of now us are going to be launching skincare products. And so that's a whole new thing for Cheekbone Beauty. And we're really, really excited about that. So that'll be happening later this year as well. Next slide. So again, I am a firm believer in vision boards and putting everything that you believe and want to happen in your life out there, because with passion and hard work, and I believe the number one personality trait or thing that everyone should have to maintain and do anything is consistency. And so consistency will help you win at everything because it just means you don't give up. And that's something that we've been very adamant about at Cheekbone Beauty and me personally. So from day one, I always thought if I'm doing something every single day to work on Cheekbone Beauty, we know this will be successful. Now I've had to get a lot more strategic about the things I'm doing to work on Cheekbone Beauty, but we've gotten there and we've done that. And that year to turn everything around, and last year to show when you focus and you're consistent, it really does work and you win. And so in the early days, I had Sephora on my vision board as they're the biggest beauty retailer in the world. And that's where I wanted to sell Cheekbone Beauty. Then I remember I was traveling and I picked up this magazine called Entrepreneur Magazine, some airport in the US. And I was like, one day I'm going to talk about Cheekbone Beauty. And that, sure enough, in 2022, I made this list of 100 women of influence. Who knew that could even happen? This means nothing financially, but I always say, like, sometimes you just put those things out there and it's incredible when these things happen. So many celebrities have fallen in love with Cheekbone Beauty, whether it's like Jillian Harris, who's a Canadian influencer, JVN from Queer Eye, absolutely loves Cheekbone products. Lily Gladstone, who wore our makeup at her Golden Globe win, which was the first Indigenous woman to ever win a Golden Globe, which was incredible. And then Blake Lively, whose makeup artist, Vivian Baker, absolutely loves Cheekbone products. And this was the day she was actually at the Super Bowl with Taylor Swift. So I don't know if they're still friends, but even if they aren't or not, this was still such a big moment for a little brand like Cheekbone Beauty. Next slide. So from the beginning, I've shared how important this idea of representation mattering means to us as a business and as a brand. And we have worked so hard to be a brand that represents Indigenous people. And I want to share with you this story that happened to us really early on. And it was at the Eaton Center in Toronto. And it was in the month of June. And Sephora allows Cheekbone to do all kinds of what they call eventing at their stores. And so for the month of June, it's Indigenous Peoples Month. We were going to all the locations across the country. So now we went from being in the 8 Sephora doors to now 15. And I literally went from the West Coast to the East Coast, visited all those stores, and did our final visit right here on Indigenous Peoples Day at the Eaton Center. And so that morning, I walk into the Eaton Center. If you've ever been there, it like literally goes up like 4 stories. And then they have these massive billboards that look like the size of transport trucks, as you can see as in the picture on the right. And it was like Cheekbone only at Sephora. And I had no idea this was happening. I had no idea that Sephora was paying for this because I was like immediately, we did not pay for this. Who did this? And I'm standing at the bottom level crying because it's just such a powerful moment. And I was literally alone thinking, I remember going to the Eaton Center as a little girl, and like I never did that dream or idea even cross my mind that I would own a brand one day at a store like Sephora. In fact, I had kind of different memories about the Eaton Center, whether it would be my dad arguing with a shopkeeper about our status card or being accused of stealing. Like these were never like quality, lovely, beautiful experiences, quite the opposite. And so then this night, I get to do the eventing, and this, it's normal, regular Sephora customers. They're a tough crowd. They already know the brands they want. It wouldn't have been Cheekbone. And I'm like, just still putting blush on everyone. But then this family walks in, and this family is Ojibwe. And I immediately could tell. And there's this beautiful little girl, and she has her little brother, and she was with her mom and her auntie, and I'm talking to her and putting blush on her. And she's already like so spunky, like already has energy that I don't remember being as confident as she was at the age of 12. And so she's telling me about her TikTok account and how it had to get shut down because it was going viral. And her little brother's looking at her like, no, it isn't. You're lying to this lady. They were just being the sweetest kids ever. Then after this, I get to go have dinner at an event with probably about 20 Indigenous tech entrepreneurs. And I'm around this table and I'm just like thinking, oh, wow, this is like, wow, what a world we live in. Like when I was a young person, like hearing the businesses they're building and working on and creating. And I know like Bobby Reset was there, who was the first Indigenous woman to ever literally, have a Series A and then B and then go off and to sell her business in Canada. And so just really powerful moments. But then I'm driving back to St. Catharines that night, and I'm in my car, and I literally like feel it in my cells. I was like, oh, and of course the tears start flooding, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness. Like, this is why representation matters so much, because that little girl and her little brother are never not going to wonder what's possible for them, because they just met a woman who looks like them, who comes from a community like they do. So for them, the world is there will be no limits. They'll be able to do anything they want. And I just feel like it's such a powerful reason why our brand existed. From the moment my brother had shared his vision for me and why he saw that this mattered so much, to this day of sharing it with these young people, I know the power of representation and how much I believe it will save lives. Thank you. Next slide. And I think we have time for questions now.
Well, thank you so much. First question we have is, we have about 14 classrooms from Indigenous schools and communities joining us online today. What is one thing you want them to keep in mind and in their hearts after today?
Oh, wow. I think just the idea that you can do anything. You can literally do nothing is impossible. Absolutely nothing is impossible. Like you can do and build anything because yeah, I just truly believe that anyone really can if you are passionate about it and you don't give up. You can literally build something that you thought you could never imagine building. I'm just living proof that you can do that.
What advice would you give to the young people watching today to help turn their ideas into reality?
So here's something when start giving advice, I've changed a little bit. I believe consistency matters, but it also matters like where you're focusing your time. And I really think, especially in this new world of like massive amounts of information, that it's important that you like find the right information and the right sources, but learning, like constantly learning everything you can about the thing you're building and not just being satisfied with maybe one side of the story, but trying to investigate the whole picture and like just getting such a big picture of everything in that industry, that space, because knowledge is truly power and that can really help you navigate and make better, faster decisions. And usually fast decision making is what helps something grow.
Using sustainable practices is not always the easiest. How has your commitment to sustainability affected how you run your business?
Absolutely true. It's definitely not always the easiest or least expensive. And then it's about finding, is the story true? Because again, it's so nuanced that somebody might be selling you or pitching you something that is sustainable, but is it really? Like you have to look at everything. And I'm just giving you an example. It's, for instance, we all are vilifying plastic and we pose perhaps wood and paper, aluminum and glass as maybe more of a sustainable option. And the truth is, are we going to destroy all of our forests in order to get that paper and that wood to make the thing more sustainable? Or the other side is, let's look at the energy consumption and cost at the same time. And that means making aluminum and glass requires so much more energy in that form of a resource to make a product versus making something out of PCR, which is post-consumer resin, or it is a plastic, but it's a plastic that's not virgin and lived longer. So it's just really important to get all of the insights and learn as much as you can again.
Thank you. If one girl at this conference starts her own company one day, what should she remember?
Oh, wow. I think remembering the next generations is really important when you're working on something, like, because then you're removing yourself from it. Like, of course, it's like a lot of things feel good when I guess we can feed our egos, but like, how do we feed our spirit, right? And that means, I really think it means by doing things for other people and really thinking about, oh, who's going to remember? I always think of Cheekbone like this now. It's like, you know what? This is tough. Maybe we'll never be a massive brand where the whole world knows who we are, but we've started something. We planted a seed. And if you think about planting a tree comes from a seed, and one day that tree is going to grow and there's going to be so many more people that can enjoy the fruits of that tree, the shade of that tree. So like, be the seed and always think of yourself as the seed and thinking about who's going to enjoy that for the next generations.
Can you go through the process of creating a new product, and which is your favorite part of that?
Oh, okay. I think this is, for us, this is such a fun part of making a new product. And so we look at it in many ways. So we're in an industry, so we want to be sustainable, but we're in an industry that demands newness. So what does that mean? If you look at beauty, brands are launching new products constantly because they've trained the customer to want something new all the time. And so at Cheekbone, we're like, okay, we know that's what the people want, but how do we do this sustainably? And so we're really thoughtful. Like, we think about a product that we're going to bring into the world and then how we can do that sustainably. So you'll see it when we launched our lip oil, for instance. We used old packaging that we had left over from our old lip gloss versions, and meaning okay, we're going to launch something new, but we'll test it in the market and perhaps an old outfit, if you will. And then if people love it, we'll then consider getting new packaging for that product. And so that's how we think of things now. But so the process is we use marketing, number one, as well as like what is the need, because and then we look at existing data on products that really sell well for us and try to make the best decisions there to find perfect product market fit. Because you don't want a product that no one's ever going to come back and buy again. You really want to make something that's going to make people come back, and you want to make a product that meets your standards of sustainability, right? So are we using all of it? Is this like it's so it's a big process. It usually in beauty, a new product can take up to 2 to 4 years to launch into the world. So I've been working on skincare for like 2.5 years now before we launch this year. And that's how long it takes. So you can have the marketing idea, you can have the agenda of like where it's going to fit in the world and where you see it fitting. And then what you have to do now with the formulations that you make is they have to be what they call stability tested. So imagine we envision it like you have to pretend it's sitting on a shelf for at least a year. And what's going to happen is the product separating. Does it melt? Like all kinds of things. Right now, the new lip balm we just launched, we launched it in a deep freeze. In Canada here, we were like minus, and even in Ontario where we don't see like the minus 30 temperatures, we were seeing that. And so a few of our customers got the lip balm where apparently if they ordered on the Friday and it's picked up by our shipper, it's sitting in our shipping warehouses over the weekend, they all froze, and like 25 of these poor customers got lip balms that were the whole thing was popped off because it froze and then popped because it looked like if the package was dropped or something. So those things can happen. But for us, it's a learning experience. And so you're like learning as you grow and as you're building, it's all part of it. But the process of making and creating a product is like a really long time. It's like legitimately minimum 18 months to 4 years before a product comes into the world. And then all the steps are the making it, the testing it to see if it works and lasts. The ingredients don't separate. They don't go bad quickly. So if we're using more naturally derived ingredients. So we still have really solid preservative systems in it. And that just a preservative system is something that goes in your formula. So your product doesn't go bad as fast. However, at some point, a more naturally derived product is going to go bad quicker than a lipstick that has maybe a heavier preservative system with ingredients that we just don't allow into our product. So it's a long process, but it's product development in the terms of formulation, but plus marketing at the same time, because you're always like, when are you going to do it? You want it to go at the perfect time. And we always think about layering, like we're putting out this product. Do we have this thing happening? Like, so you're just trying to be as strategic as possible, but it's a long process for sure. It's definitely not like super easy where you're just popping something out and hoping for the best. It's really, really thoughtful from our end.
If you're comfortable sharing, how much is Cheekbone Beauty worth as it stands?
How much are we worth? Well, we did a valuation when our investors came on, like in 2019, and then another one we took on another tranche of money from them. And so like back then we were worth like 7 million. And today we've grown. So I don't know. I'm going to throw it out there. Maybe we're worth 10 million. I don't know. I haven't done a valuation in a while.
Who is one celebrity that you would love to see Cheekbone Beauty products on?
Oh my goodness. I am a Swiftie. I'm an old Swiftie because my daughter's a Swiftie, but of course Taylor Swift, would love to see her. And I'm just trying to think of other celebrities. I mean, any of them, any time that's happened, I can tell you it's been the most exciting moment. You're like, oh my goodness, they know about our brand. And we're this little tiny brand from Canada. Like it's crazy when that does happen, but it's nonetheless super exciting. I would like everyone to be wearing it. But of course, like a big celebrity talking about it, that would be huge, because we know that that's sadly, we have on our team, we have mostly younger people than me. And the truth is they're like, yeah, we buy stuff because so-and-so's wearing it. And so we know that that's how this industry does work.
Yeah, for sure. Was this a challenging industry to get into? And what made you want to enter this industry?
Yeah. So, honest facts, if I knew what I knew now, I would have never started the brand ever, ever, ever. And that's just the truth because it is so competitive. It is such a competitive space. I mean, all business is competitive, but I feel like beauty is legitimately run by like 5 conglomerates that own everything. So whether it's L'Oreal and all the brands that fall under that, Estee Lauder, LVMH, which is literally Sephora, and then all their brands that they own. And then there's Coty, and then there's like the big ones that have other smaller beauty brands, like I guess P&G and like Unilever and stuff. But though they own everything. So when you realize how hard it is to be an indie, but then it's also about recognizing, okay, I've now really accepted the fact. I'm like, you know what? We are just going to be this slow, sustainable, growing Indigenous beauty brand that's going to slowly take up space and be in all the spaces we want to be. So it's how you look at it. But again, it's not easy. It's so competitive, and marketing is the biggest cost in a lot of businesses, in particular in beauty. And I can tell you that it's just so many dollars have to be spent to just get a customer's attention, and it's really, really challenging. So many learnings. Like if I knew what I knew now, I would have launched skincare. One, like you just have to think of how a customer uses a product. Color is so hard because we're talking about SKUs, multiple SKUs. When I talked earlier about MOQs, so now our partners, when we make a product if we're bringing a new shade into the world, that's 5,000 units. So you have to imagine, like, how are we selling this to 5,000 people? Like, that's a lot of units of something. And so foundation, for instance, you see these brands that like, you shouldn't be in color if you can't launch 60 shades of foundation. Well, that's really impossible for a small brand to do. And so it's just becomes a massive cost. So if I was to launch skincare first, now I create a skincare product and someone uses a cleanser, a moisturizer, serums every single day. And in color, are they wearing my red lipstick every day? Probably not, right? So it's now I just know so much more information about the space, and I possibly wouldn't even be in beauty. I probably would have started a tech company if I knew what I knew now. CPG is just hard.
2 more
Inventory
questions.
is expensive.
What do you do when someone says your idea won't work?
Oh. Well, it all depends who it is, right? If they're in the space and they're smart, and then you can listen, but always listen like, if you believe something's going to work, then I'm quite honestly believe that you can make it work if you have the facts and you know what you're doing. But it's always like context, like who's saying that to you first, number one. But yeah, you sometimes you listen and sometimes you don't have to.
Okay, last question. What are your future goals for Cheekbone Beauty?
Oh, wow. The goal, like, so I've been so bold in the past where I'm like wanted the valuation to be $1 billion because I said that during the height of like beauty acquisition time. And so Glossier was acquired or valued at $1 billion. I know It Cosmetics had just sold to L'Oreal for $1 billion. Drunk Elephant just sold to like Shiseido for like 800 million. And so I was like, if these women can do that, why can't I? Because they were all women-founded companies. And so I had boldly said that. But now I know we could get there one day. But I also now see definitely the strategic steps that it'll take for us to get there. And I know I'll never be able to do that alone. So that meant that I wanted us to be a global brand. I want Indigenous people around the world because we're on every continent. I went to Japan this past summer. We have the Ainu Indigenous community there. I've been to New Zealand, and you can just see when you travel the planet that we are a global group of people, and we've all been impacted by colonization, and we all struggle with generational trauma. And I believe that seeing something as powerful as a brand that represents us can really make dramatic changes whether it's just in our psyche. I believe that on this like unconscious level, we don't know yet as humans how important it is to feel seen and be seen. And when we do, that changes people. It changes it changes your cells. And I really believe that. And so that's the goal of the brand, to be on shelves around the world. And hopefully, Sephora will be our partner in doing that because they're a global beauty retailer. But we are just growing at our pace within their spaces.
Well, thank you very much. I can speak for the students at the Science Center and people watching on YouTube. We really enjoyed you joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thank you so much, Jen. That was a fantastic story about resilience and creating a company kind of against all odds. We really, really appreciate it. And I want to just take a few minutes to thank everybody for coming out and listening to our live session of this. This wouldn't be possible without the Status of Women Office Saskatchewan, ISC, and IKS Media. We greatly appreciate their funding and them letting us be able to do this. For the rest of today, the virtual participants are welcome to go through their activity box and go through all of the mentor videos as well as the activities at their own pace. And we just want to thank you so much for joining us. My name is Melissa, and happy International Day for Women and Girls in Science.